You know, for over 50 years, one name has been the absolute definition of aviation's most gripping unsolved mystery: D.B. Cooper. Think about it. A guy hijacks a plane, gets a fortune in cash, and then literally vanishes into the night. It's the perfect crime, and it's fascinated us for generations. But what if that case isn't nearly as cold as we've all been led to believe?
What if this half-century-old cold case just blew wide open? I mean, when a headline like this drops, it sends shockwaves through everyone who's been following this thing for decades. It hints at a family secret, one that's been buried for a lifetime, that might just hold the key to everything.
So, let me introduce you to Rick McCoy III. He's the man behind that headline, and he has come forward with a claim that is absolutely stunning. He says he knows exactly who D.B. Cooper really was.
And the suspect he's pointing the finger at? His own father. That's right. Rick McCoy believes that his dad, Richard Floyd McCoy Jr., a Vietnam vet, a seasoned skydiver, basically a man with the perfect resume for this kind of heist, was the legendary skyjacker.
Now, what makes this whole thing so compelling is where this information comes from. Rick says his mother, Karen McCoy, confessed everything to her kids. She apparently admitted that she was an accomplice, that she helped her husband plan not just the D.B. Cooper hijacking, but another one too. And the reason for all the silence? Well, Rick was just honoring his mother's wish. She made him promise to wait until after she passed away in 2020 to finally reveal the family's secret.
Okay, so before we can really dig into this new claim and see if it holds any water, we have to understand the legend itself. To see if Richard McCoy Jr. even fits the bill, we've got to go right back to where it all started. The whole story? It's like something straight out of a Hollywood movie. Picture this. It's Thanksgiving Eve, 1971. A man who calls himself Dan Cooper, and by the way, not DB as the media later called him, he calmly tells a flight attendant he has a bomb. His demands? They're met on the ground in Seattle. And then, somewhere in the sky between Seattle and Reno, he lowers the rear stairs of that Boeing 727 and just jumps out into the freezing night, disappearing into history.
And what was the prize for this incredibly audacious crime? $200,000. Now you have to remember, in 1971, that was a staggering amount of money. We're talking over $1.5 million today. That's a life-changing score, and maybe, just maybe, worth risking everything for.
For years, there was nothing. Not a trace of Cooper or that money. Then, out of the blue, in 1980, a little kid finds these decaying bundles of cash along the Columbia River. It was just a small fraction of the ransom, but it's still one of the only tangible, physical links we have to the man who just vanished.
Okay, and this right here, this is the benchmark. This is the official FBI description that every single suspect has to be measured against. A guy in his mid-40s, about 6'1". Keep those details locked in your head because they are about to become very, very important.
So, the McCoy confession. It sounds pretty explosive, right? But here's the twist. It's just one in a very, very long line of confessions. See, this case has a really unique problem. Way too many people have claimed to be the ghost in the sky.
And I'm not really exaggerating here. The pull of this mystery is just so strong that over the decades, dozens and dozens of people have claimed, yep, that was me, I'm D.B. Cooper. This massive flood of confessions actually makes finding the real truth that much harder.
So let's meet a few of the other contenders in this, let's call it a parade of potential Coopers. And believe me, each story is somehow even more unbelievable than the last.
All right, first up, we've got Barbara Dayton. She was a skilled pilot and a World War II veteran. Now, in 1969, just 2 years before the hijacking, she underwent one of the first gender reassignment surgeries in Washington state. Here's the story. Dayton apparently confessed to her friends that she committed the heist, presenting as a man as a form of revenge against the airline industry. But when she realized the feds were still very serious about prosecuting whoever did it, she backtracked fast, claiming she made the whole thing up. Then you have Walter Reka, a former paratrooper, and his claim is one of the most detailed ones out there. A close friend of his actually recorded hours and hours of his confession, where Reka laid out exactly how he supposedly pulled off the whole crime. But here's the problem with all that detail. Reka claimed he landed in a town called Cle Elum, Washington. The thing is, that's over 150 miles away from where aviation experts are almost certain Cooper would have actually landed. That is a major hole in the story. Next up is Robert Rackstraw. This guy was a real character, a Vietnam vet and pilot with a serious flair for the dramatic.
I mean, he was known for incredibly risky behavior, even faking his own death once to escape the law. He definitely had the nerve for a crime like this. So some investigators are convinced that Rackstraw sent these coded letters to newspapers, basically taunting the authorities. Now, while he often hinted that he was Cooper, he always publicly denied it, just brushing off the theories as nonsense right up until his death in 2019.
And this, right here, this is where so many of these stories just start to fall apart. When you put these suspects up against that original FBI profile, the problems are pretty clear. I mean, look at McCoy and Rackstraw. They were way too young, in their late 20s, not mid-40s. Walter Rakoa, okay, he's closer in age, but he, like the others, doesn't match that 6'1" height. Physically, none of them are really a perfect fit.
So you have to ask why. Why does this one unsolved crime continue to spawn so many confessions, so many theories, so many decades later? What is it about this case?
Well, it really boils down to the power of the myth. In our world of constant surveillance and tracking, the idea of one single person pulling off a perfect crime, beating the system and just disappearing without a trace, that's incredibly powerful. D.B. Cooper isn't just a criminal anymore. He's become a kind of modern-day folk hero.
And that really leads us to our final question, the big one that hangs over this entire case. With every new confession, like this recent one from the McCoy family, and every new theory that pops up, are we actually getting any closer to solving this thing? Or are we just adding another chapter to a legend that has become way bigger than the man who started it all?